Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I still don't get it straight. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to scoot over here and turn off this light. I do have a bit of an issue with the reflective coating on my glasses, but I think I'm getting a little bit better. There we go. It's a little bit better. It's not perfect, but we adapt, we conquer, we make it work. And it's not really what I look like, right? It is a podcast. It's how I sound. And I was going to say make excuses for that too, because in my layman's way of getting a message out, I have to be myself in my imperfect perfectness. We'll just leave it at that. I got all excited just before I came live. I went into the main screen on my laptop and I get different suggestions because I use each computer for different content, for different types of work. So it makes sense that when I go into my main pages on my laptop, it's going to suggest me some different aspects than what I'm going on all day in on my PC, right? But just as I was coming in, I went into my main page and I got all excited. A new discovery, a new archaeological discovery. And they kind of make it look like it's a TEDx talks. And I looked underneath and they give it a big broadcast, like it's a news network, right? Even the fonts and everything it was just meant to trap me into going into something that was nothing. And I got all excited about new discoveries. I love new discoveries. When it comes to archaeology, it's almost on a daily basis now because we are getting so good. Well, I'm not going to say we're getting so good, right? It is the age of AI learning that gives us the resources to feel like we are smarter than we are. I'm not quite sure, it's really easy to let the digital age take care of ourselves. It is. But, I think the idea is for us to be self-reliant. I mean, the age of AI learning, it's going to move into something different, right? Right now, it's just like the cell phone. When the cell phone first came out, it was like a big brick with a great big antenna out of it. And you had to be a millionaire or a billionaire to even afford one. And now, right, everybody has a phone, right? Kids are born asking for their iPhones, aren't they? Or their pixels. Or their pixels. I am a Google girl. I just had to get that little shot in there. I should actually eliminate that word in reference, that iPhone, because, I am a Google girl. And I think if I give these kind of examples, right, I should promote what I love, what I am comfortable in, because it's part of my community. Or should I say, I am part of their community. And it might be in a little piece in this moment, but I am optimistic in my ideas that, Cindy gets one shot around, right? This is my shot. But those other parts of me are going to have many, 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 many more shots. And I'm excited because, I feel comfortable in the process and I feel very comfortable with those other parts of me. Lots of people are not comfortable with their other parts. They really aren't. And I get it, right? But we are, I'm not going to say, I was going to say gatekeepers. I don't know why I was going to say gatekeepers, but we're not. We're the waysayers. Oh my goodness, where did that one come from? But we're the ones that are supposed to hail in the new year, kind of like, right? We're just getting over the new year. So just using that as an example, because again, things are going to change so much. Look how much things have changed in the past 20 years. I can't imagine for the majority of the people my age who will be here, most of us will be here in 20 years, right? How are we going to manage, right? When we're not even playing on the computers, we're not, right? We're not doing anything with our phones except for phoning and texting, and not realizing that this is the same technology, the same amount of technology as it took to send somebody to the moon, right? Not this day and age, but let's go back to 1967 when NASA, right? They would have thought this was like a gift from God, right? There wouldn't have been no race to get to space, because this would pretty much have done it for them. Just having Gemini and asking Gemini for the answers, right? To be able to watch YouTube videos and learn the mechanics of building, right? And actually get into, again, YouTube, or you can go into the Google Talks or into the TEDx talks, and be able to have better insights for this day and age. You know, we are moving into something crazy, 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 and it's partly technical, partly beyond us, and things are going to change so much that the resources that are relevant for us today are just going to boggle our minds, or kind of look kind of dull and insignificant. For myself, it's kind of that little push that I feel sometimes, that I spend more time in reflection. I spend a lot of time in contemplation. I spend a lot of time in analyzing my emotions and reflecting on my emotions and reflecting in my own dynamic family, right? Because that's where all the answers lie for me, right? I was woken up to these ideas. I wasn't woken up to your ideas, your experiences. And from my own understandings, I really love this mission, that this idea of making some movement and being the examples for others, and each one of us. And I have those examples for myself, I do, but I also have some bad examples. And we all have bad examples in our lives. And it starts from the day that we're born. And if you hang out with me, for sure you do, right? Because this is where we get tripped up, because, right, maybe we were never meant, right? They thought they had such a handle on it that we were never meant to get to this point, but by some miracle we did it. And I can see the miracle in that, right? This age of AI learning has only been around for like 20, 25 years. In those 20, 25 years, we had lots of chances. There were lots of moments that might not have even made it so that we could have gotten to this point, and we didn't all get to this point, but some of us did. And I think that might have been enough to be able to have a shot at something, right? That even if we don't understand in the moment, right? Even though Cindy's not coming back, those other parts of me are coming back. I am 100% guaranteed, right? I wouldn't have gotten to this point with just the lessons that I picked up in the past half a dozen years, 100%. But I would like to think that now that we're in this magnificent, glorious, insightful age that we all live in. We all live in it, no matter what age we are. We all live in it, and we all get that choice, right? As human beings, to delve into this age of AI learning, or, right, stay asleep to it and just trust that, right, you'll get that in. I say this in my live show on Sunday nights. I have a lot of caregivers on my show on Sunday nights. And, I believe that the caregivers were given to me just in case I messed up, because they get a free in because they're caregivers, right? That automatically they get to move forward, right? And if I had messed up, if I didn't stay on track, if I didn't stay on my main branch of my tree, if I didn't make it, right, that I wouldn't have caused any serious, right, um, detriment to anybody that has been with me. And I'm grateful that I have people that have been with me for the entire 11 years that I have been here on YouTube. Welcome, welcome. I bet you didn't know that. You might have just popped into my live today and say, hey, where did this woman come from? I've been around, right? I have been around, but you're just being introduced to me in this moment. I come from a very dynamic family, and I was given an opportunity to do some work, to really delve deep, to really see where I got it wrong, where my sisters got it wrong, where my parents got it wrong, my grandparents, right? Epigenetically, right? We are just the children of our parents, right? Like, we're literally carbon copies. Well, unless you come from a dynamic family. And when I say dynamic family, I had two parents in the extremes, right? My father was very spiritual. My mother loved Jesus. My father was I'm not going to say meek. My dad was a very strong, independent man, but at the same time, right? My mother ran the coop, right? My mother was very headstrong. And, sometimes when we don't get things right, right? Sometimes that is brought up to not just serve us a lesson, but also to let us know where not to overstep. And, I didn't get it growing up. I'm just myself, right? I'm creating the best human being I possibly can. But I was even doing that when I wasn't woke to any of these ideas. Hello. Hello, Melvin. Melvin, good cheer is after visiting my doctor. He gave me 100% good. My blood sugar problem is good now. Oh, Melvin, that's absolutely amazing, right? That is really amazing. I find that with myself that I ingest way too much. Well, it's not the sugar that's the problem for me. It's the carbohydrates that revert to sugar. I am a carb addict for sure. And, right, I come in here and it's not like I don't have faults, that I have got everything under control. I am bumbling along just like everybody else. But that is really, really good news, Melvin. I'm really happy for that. And keep that up, because that's something to be proud of. And toot that horn, Melvin. Tell everybody, right? Everybody you bump into, because that becomes the evidence for somebody else that they can get their sugars under control, right? And it was good that you were working with your doctor. Lots of people, right? Especially in the States, they don't go to the doctors, right? I bet you there's so many people out there with diabetes, but because they can't afford the insulin, they can't the dialysis, if they have to do dialysis just to go get a doctor's appointment, like these things are expensive, and a lot of people put their health to the wayside. That's one thing I have to say, you know, about Canada, that if we don't feel well, that we can go and see somebody, even if we're just feel like we have a cold or a fever and we just need a prescription, that we could just scoot off to a walk-in clinic or go to our family doctors, or right, have surgery. And people say, yeah, the waiting list is forever. But oh my goodness, I had two sisters who were taken care of by the healthcare system here in Canada. And I can guarantee you, right, that they wouldn't have been here if they didn't have that option to just be able to search out the answers and find out why they're not feeling good. And even for myself, right, I had a gastric bypass when I was 27 years old. I was 311 pounds, and I had no control over my weight. Again, I come from a dynamic family, and I wore lots of shoes, and of course it's in my choices. But lots of times we have free choice, but we choose from the selection, from the hors d'oeuvre platter. We choose from the influence, and sometimes by the manipulation, right? We can get tricked into that. I've been tricked into it so many lifetimes, so many times during my lifetime, make my head spin, right? And I was thinking about that tonight too, in that relationship with my father, right? I had serious difficulties with my mother, and I held it against my father that he didn't save me, he didn't protect me, you know um from situations that he fully was aware of, right? And that he, right, even possibly made that work for him in a way, right? My father struggled himself, right? I am my father's daughter, and as much as, right, I as much as I was in that mix, my father was in that mix himself. But being an adult, he could get away from it, right? Like, so my dad was a commercial fisherman. He worked night shift as a cabbie. Like, he was able to adapt and conquer. I was absolutely clueless. I was just like in the washing machine. And I just had to follow in that dictation, right? Honor thy mother and thy father. And I had to follow suit in that. And so when I say, when I woke up to some ideas that I had some work to do. And I did that work, and I'm still doing that work. Like I said, up until very recently, I just really held that against my father, that my father didn't protect me as a child. But sometimes, as an adult, we find that emotionally that we can't stand up to something that's projecting something more ferocious. We'll just put it that way, right? That sometimes we don't have that capability of butting heads. Sometimes we're so sensitive that we become codependent, sometimes masochistic in that too, right? Because when we become masochistic in what's hurting us, it's because it's hurt us for so long that that's the only way that we can cope, because that's what we're familiar with. That's what we think we deserve, right? And so after a while, right? It's really sad to say, but some people find relief, right? And release in that, I just have to say it, that abuse, right? Because that's what it is. And whether that is domestic abuse or that's spiritual abuse, it's still abuse, right? And so, I have to stay soft in that idea that, right, my father was fighting his own battles and he was doing the very best that he could. But that's the idea. We pass the lessons to the next generations so that they don't find themselves in those same situations, right? Right, if I had children, I'd be doing better by my children. And then my children would be doing better by their children. And that's how we move along in our evolution. And this is how we have a better understanding of how to get along with others and how to get along with ourselves, right? Yeah, I have no idea where that one came from. Obviously, it came from content that I was in today that kind of got me all fiery, right? Because I don't want to have these understandings. I don't want to think that, that people out there actually have ill intent for the people that they surround themselves with. We're supposed to be able to trust who we move with. We're supposed to be able to take our lessons from those who are woke to those ideas, that those lessons should be passed on, and yet we're all struggling. We're holding it on like it's our trophy, right? This is our experience, and it's for everybody. And then so many people out there are missing out. And we're in that stage right now where we're moving into this next stage of evolution. And it just makes me wonder how many people got left behind, right? How many different families, right, didn't get those lessons. And it also answers as to why, right, lots of people are asleep during the process so that they don't get affected, right? Let them sit there in front of the TV playing their video games, right? Let them chase down their dreams and keep them preoccupied in that way. They don't have those experiences where they could wake up to something, right? Wake up to a truth that they didn't want to believe, right? That seemed impossible. But then, right, you just let it settle into the system, right? You let the understandings just settle into the system, at least, and then understand, at least now you know what the problem is. And if you know what the problem is, then maybe we can search out answers, right? Maybe we can work on forgiveness, retribution, right? make up for where we got things wrong, even understanding that there might not be a lot of time and space to be able to do that, right? To make right our wrongs. And I don't have, right, this connection that, right, it's always outside of myself, if that makes any sense, right? I am making movement. I'm creating the best human being I possibly can, right? And I don't believe that it is necessary for me to be anything other than who I am, or I would have woken up to some of these ideas, right? A lot sooner than I had. Things come to us when they come to us, right? For a specific reason. And the reasons aren't necessarily given to us, but the responsibility and that project, we'll call it a project, right, is, and it's in our choices whether or not to participate or not, right? And you can just stay. If you say, if I said no right this moment, that would be fine, and I would be good with, I would work with what I've got. But I'm too into it now. My curiosity and my resolve, because I feel that this needs to be resolved, this needs to be fixed, or we're going to have ourselves in a real pickle, right? Moving forward. And, I don't think I'm the only one working on these problems. As of recently, I have been bumping into, surprisingly, right? I've been in this for years and years and years, just waiting to bump into people with some of these same ideas. And now, right, I'm getting introduced to these people with some of these same ideas. It's like I say all the time, or you hear all the time. It gives me the permission, right, to do the same, right? It's giving me permission because it's giving me that courage, because I don't want to be the only one, right? Moving the way I do. Because that would just single me out in so many ways. So it's nice to know that I've got company out there. This confusion look in mine, I'm thinking about, why am I not delving into their content more if those people are, it's just because I needed the confirmation, right? That was the only thing that I was looking for, was the confirmation that there are other people. I right? If I felt that pull or that need to search out or sit in on a conversation, I would do it, no problem, right? But that's the way I work, right? If I don't feel compelled, then, right, I know possibly I might miss out lots in that, but I think, the way that I move right now, that I'm doing okay. I think I would miss out more if I started going down side branches that didn't necessarily add to what I'm working on right now, or what I want to move towards, or what I would like to see for the world, right? We'd all like to contribute a little bit, but holy moly moly, I'm glad there's more people out there than me on that topic, because it's a big topic, it's a big problem, right? And for the next generation, we gonna have to be on top of it, right? It's really important that the future generations get a fair shot because they're going to know more than we do, right? I'm not just talking about the baby boomers, but this generation of AI learning. How is this going to move like 20 years from now? Look how much we've accomplished in 20 years. We even have robots now that work in people's houses. Like, you know, we need to, we need to, we need to prepare the next stage in a way that's practical, a way that is reasonable and sensible and realistic, but at the same time gives people the courage, right, to have their own say, to be able to feel themselves out and to feel what's true for them and not worry so much if there's anybody else out there who thinks like them, right? Because in 20 years from now, oh my goodness, it's going to be so different. It's going to be so different. I'm so grateful, right, for this digital age. I have no idea how I ended up in online in social media. It is in that transition. It's always just moving, right? And expanding and then getting comfortable and then stretching. We had that word flexibility, right? And then we stretch and we learn some more and that's experience and that's how we get better. And that's evolution and that's in the preparation for the human beings that we're going to be in the next 100 years, 1,000 years, 100,000 years, right? And I'm not worried about it. Cindy's not going to be here, but I do worry for those other parts of me that depend on me to understand and to connect with those other parts of me a little bit more, right? I'm not a big meditator, but I spend a lot of time on my own. I'm always in contemplation. The difference between, you know, being in contemplation and actually searching out the information and the answers is the contemplation allows the information just to come to you, just to absorb into your system as an understanding, as a truth, right? When you're out there, right, you're listening to other people, you're taking in other people's insights. And yes, everybody has smarts and everybody's an expert in something, right? Even for myself, I love going in there and listening and watching some of these YouTube channels. They're super smart, super creative, and interesting, right? But for each one of us, we're going to have to decide where where we want to go and then just move towards that, right? Whether it's just in conversations and experiences and going to school, going to work, watching YouTube videos, reading books, working online, right? Just in that movement, we learn, right? We do learn. We make lots of mistakes along the way, but in that repetitiveness, right, we get to understand that, you know, we can do it, that we can feel our way along. I've been feeling my way along my entire life, and it, you know, I would have to say when I woke up to some of these ideas because, you know, I've been I've been doing that my entire life. It just made the process just a little bit more easier. Not any more comfortable, but a little bit easier. Okay, you guys, let's just get into a word. The police are downstairs. Ah, It's not one thing, it's another. Oh my goodness. They moved a couple of couples out of the apartment building in the past 24 hours. The homeless people coming into the building and sleeping in the stairwells and everything. And, we're not allowed to let people into the building and stuff if we don't know them. And otherwise, we get a little talking to, right? Because they do come in and cause havoc. And yesterday we had a lady on my floor. Oh my goodness, she scared the poop out of me. She was screaming and yelling, and I grabbed a knife. I was gonna go out into the hallway, right, just to check to make sure that she was okay, because she was crying and screaming, and I didn't hear anybody else or anything. But then all the other doors opened up, and so I just kind of peeked out the little eye thing on my door, and it turned out to be somebody who was really, 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 like, really high. I don't think I've ever seen anybody that high, not unless they were like sleeping or in stupor or something. But oh my goodness, right? And then today too, another couple got walked out of the building, and then twice during the middle of the night, like 2 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning, the security patrols come in, and they have to walk up one stairwell, and then they have to walk down the next, on the other side of the building, stairwell, and clear out the people who are sleeping in the stairwells, right? It's a difficult. I was having this conversation today when I was coming home from the grocery store, and was in the elevator, and me and a gentleman, we were talking about it. It's really hard, right? For myself, if I saw somebody in the stairwell, I probably would not think out on them. I wouldn't, right? I would just probably excuse me and step over them, right? And because I just don't have the heart. I know what it's like to get that close to being homeless. I've never been homeless. I got pretty close to being homeless. Oh my goodness, right? But I would like to think that, somebody would give me that consideration if I was in that position of needing a stairwell to sleep in, right? It's much better than being outside. Just down the street from me, we have like a little stage area where people can busk or put on little shows, and nice seating area and everything. And they have this electrical box. The homeless people tore the lid off the electrical box, and now they got plug-ins, right? And when I walk, there's a guy with a box, and he's got his heater plugged in, he's got his phone plugged in, and he lives in this box. I would assume he's got a pretty good setup with a heater and everything, and he doesn't even have to pay a hydro bill or any hydro. Um, in Canada, it's our electricity bill, right? I've mentioned it a few times, hydro, but I meant to correct myself because I have American audience, and I wasn't sure whether or not they understood the terminology when I talked about my utilities, that they would understand that my hydro was actually my electrical bill, but that's what it is. Hydro is our electric. Okay, you guys, let's get into a card. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to come back into this one for myself tonight, because I have been searching out answers for myself. Maybe I just kind of slipped something in there for myself. I don't know. But I'm curious enough just to come in and watch my own live. I usually come in, I take my own lessons, right? Myself. And so that's nothing new to me, but right? Okay, you guys. Couple of minutes. I'm going to grab a card, and we're just going to go into the word. If you haven't come in before, 54 powerful words. And we're just going to pick a word, and we'll go into it for a couple of minutes, maybe. Here we go. Oh my goodness. This is a really nice card. I haven't pulled this card yet. Thoughtfulness. Thoughtfulness is remembered, right? Today, I watch these renovation. I'm looking for a retirement where I want to retire and where it's inexpensive and stuff, where my pension would stretch far enough that I could have a nice retirement. And I was watching a gentleman. He's building a home for a homeless family, a mother and her 3 or 4 children, and they live in a box that is 10 feet by 12 feet, I think they said. They couldn't even open up the door, right? Full weight because their sleeping arrangements. And this gentleman was giving out little bags. It was Christmas. It was Hawaii. It was the Philippines. So it would look like Hawaii with the palm trees and nice and sunny and hot. But he was handing out these bags of groceries to all his neighbors and stuff. And he drove by this little box and he says, I don't know, but I've seen children running around this shed, right? And I better check to see if there's a family in there. And sure enough, this woman and her 3 or 4 children were in there. I don't know why I said three twice now. Her 4 children, the 5 of them were living in this building. Her husband had died, and there was a typhoon that took out their house. So that's why they were living in this little shed. And she went to work every day. The kids took care of themselves, and he just stopped and he gave them all his groceries, all the groceries he was going to give to the neighbors, because the neighbors were all doing good. They were family and friends and stuff. So he gave them all the groceries, and then he started uh oh no, then one of his followers uh decided that they were going to buy the groceries for that family for a year. So every week, right, he started taking this family into town and getting them groceries. And then he started one of those GoFundMe's, and now they're building this family a house, right? So when we talk about thoughtfulness, right? Thoughtfulness is remembered. And thoughtfulness doesn't have to just be in something material. When you walk to the grocery store, and I get hit up all the time. Walk to the grocery store, and the homeless people are asking for change, or asking you to go into the liquor store for them and stuff, right? It's that's not remembered, in all honesty, right? When you hand somebody 50 cents or $1 when they ask for it, do you think that they remember you? They'll say thank you to you in the moment. So I'm wondering, that thoughtfulness is not being taken into consideration by most people who do ask for the handouts, right? It is appreciated sometimes when they get those big ones, but for $1 or a quarter, right? That's what they're doing for 8 hours, right? That's how they're making their money. But when you're actually doing a kindness for somebody, that makes it so that the movement in their life is a little bit better, or their struggles in their life don't seem like such a burden, such a struggle. And we have to remember, when we do a thoughtfulness for somebody else, right? Not only is it remembered, it's seen. And I used to say this all the time, that sometimes in the just like just like when I said that, when he took the groceries and he gave all the groceries to this family, that somebody in his audience offered to buy the groceries for them. That's the idea. Sometimes the thoughtfulness is not for the actual recipient, right? Sometimes that thoughtfulness is for the audience, right? For the bystanders, right? For the bystanders, the people who witness somebody doing a kindness for somebody, because then they're being the example, and that's the idea in creating the best human being you possibly can be, is to be the example for others, right? And that's the idea. Now it's not like, to make it so that anybody who doesn't want to work, right, they can go and sit and just beg for money and groceries and stuff. This family didn't ask for anything, but it was, right, it was offered to them. But we should make that effort for ourselves. And if we make that effort for ourselves, something or someone will come up behind us and sweep us up and give us a little assistance in moving forward, especially when it's scary moving forward, right? And even for myself, so many kindnesses have come across my path, my sisters, right? you know Lots of times people do nice things because of the reflection for themselves, right? Is that reflection on themselves? The same idea, right? When you do kindnesses for other, it's sometimes not the kindness itself that's being recognized. It's sometimes the person that's doing that kindness for somebody. So as much as that person, because lots of you see these short YouTube videos and Instagram videos all the time of people going out there and asking um, a homeless person how they're doing. Can I go buy you some clothes, or can I buy you a pair of shoes or something? But they got their camera in that person's face, and that that hurt, vulnerable, in the moment person's face, and they do still need shoes or a coat or whatever. But this is somebody that's not doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it for subscribers and followers and money, right? And you know, and they're using these vulnerable people to get that job, done, right? And sometimes, thoughtfulness is remembered, the kindness, it's still appreciated, but you know it should be the the kindness that should be witnessed by others, and not, right, not the person giving the kindness. Like the focal point, the star of the show is the kindness, right? Is the thoughtfulness. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way, right? Sometimes, these people are making a living on doing kindnesses. And is there something wrong in doing that? Because you have to think, the homeless person might not have a social platform, and the person making the videos might have the gumption and the know-how to do the GoFundMe's and stuff. So for each one of us, I guess we have to individually make that decision for ourselves as to um, the gift, what the gift actually is, because it could be the content creator, right? That maybe he just in the moment, this is what he's doing, but he'll move on to, and he's still doing a good thing, right? He's still doing a good thing, but not for the right reasons. We have to make sure that it's for the right reasons because there is an audience, right? There are witnesses and observers in our interactions with others. So if we can keep that in mind, right, even when we're holding the door for somebody, right? Somebody might see that and take it upon themselves to open up the door for somebody else or go to themselves, oh my goodness, I was standing right there. I could have done that for her, right? And then have that recognition for themselves so that the next time they see somebody, right, they'll just run and hold the door for them. And that's how we learn off of each other, right? Off of the examples that each one of us are. And we could be a good example or we could be a bad example. And I can tell you honestly, I have been both, right? And I think for the majority, we could all say that. Okay. Thoughtfulness is remembered, and it is remembered, right? It's remembered by the recipient, and it's remembered by the audience, and it's remembered by the observers, right? And the standbys, right? And the people who are just walking by, right? Thoughtfulness. Yeah, it's remembered and it's appreciated, right? I should have said and appreciated, but just my example right now, you can see it's not always appreciated. Thoughtfulness sometimes is expected, right? My sister's thoughtfulness, I never expect it, but I am always grateful and I am always surprised and right, and in that I remember, right? Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. Have a great day. Hello, Eugene.